So Peter Coffin has agreed to do a debate with Milo Yiannopoulos, moderated by Lauren Chen, and it has caused a massive outrage on social media from people on the left. So I kind of want to talk about it, talk about his reasons, and talking about similar instances of people on the left maybe going on a right platform to try and get the people who traditionally only listen to voices from the right to listen to someone from the left and maybe possibly change their views. Now, I'm also going to talk about why this is probably a bad idea with someone like Milo Yiannopoulos and why it's a bad idea when it's moderated by another person on the far right, Lauren Chen. So before we get into everything in the video, let's talk about Peter announcing this on Twitter. So Peter says, "So I'm going to be in Milwaukee during the DNC to do a discussion with Milo Yiannopoulos about deplatforming, which will be moderated by Lauren Chen. And it was announced 3 hours ago and no one has said anything, so I'm cancelling myself. For you, Peter Coffin is over party," so he knew it was going to be controversial. "The event is called Better Discourse. I'll say I'm not out for Milo's blood, and that will probably bug some folks out there. I want to take it seriously and attempt to put a more left populist viewpoint in front of some folks who think the left is all about cancelling people. Folks might recall that I don't set out to moralise and I'm not in favour of the deplatforming argument, meaning that to some extent he and I most likely agree. However, it should also be quite obvious there is a massive difference in worldview between he and I as well." And then obviously after the backlash, Peter tweeted, "Finally burned the last of the liberal bridges," and someone said, "Very lol that you think it's the liberals that are upset with you for engaging fascists," and he says it is. Someone else tweeted him, "Well, I'm glad you're at least being open about being a shameless grifter now," and he said, "I don't give a shit what people like yourself on this platform think of me. In fact, they kind of welcome this kind of insane antagonism. You're going to push me in front of normal people if you keep this up." So I think it's also important to highlight, which Peter does, is that he didn't agree in the first place to have a debate with Milo. He only found out later after he agreed. So someone says, "Peter, you can do as you please, but those sharing their worries about you platforming someone that faded into obscurity is valid. Last I checked, Milo's fan page has dwindled ever since he's been deplatformed." And then Peter said, "Been complaining to Better Discourse. I agreed to this panel before Milo did. Sorry, but people have no analysis of power at all. The performance of, oh, but you'll never change Milo's mind, as if people don't understand what I do at this point. No one who actually engages with me thinks I'm going to turn Milo into a leftist." So first I'm going to talk about Peter's rationale here. So to some of you it might make sense, and it's actually an argument people like Bernie Sanders have used in the past, because if you remember, a lot of Democratic presidential hopefuls didn't go on Fox News. Elizabeth Warren is probably the most prominent because they said something like Fox News just spreads hate. Well, Bernie Sanders actually did go on it, and basically his justification was, "I'm going to reach people who would never hear my ideas otherwise, because all they watch is Fox News, and all Fox News does is spin what I say and spin my ideas, so they never hear, I guess, a real version of it." So he went on, and if you remember, it was quite successful in terms of the audience gave him quite a good reception to what he was saying and his policy ideas, and I think it influenced a lot of people. So then we go to someone like Joe Rogan. So obviously Bernie went on the Joe Rogan podcast, so did people like Tulsi Gabbard and Andrew Yang, and if you read the comments in those videos, it talks about people who said, you know, I thought Bernie was insane, a crazy socialist, but now I see he's very normal, his ideas make sense, and I will vote for him if it's between him and Donald Trump. So you can see how this often works, and yes, some people do stick in their bubble where they watch just people like Rogan or Fox News, and seeing an outside influence like Bernie Sanders is obviously good because it's their first exposure to it and it might change their mind. So obviously Peter is thinking in the same vein as Bernie Sanders here, in the sense that he wants to go on this public debate forum with someone like Milo Yiannopoulos, moderated by someone who is similar to Milo in terms of Lauren Chen moderating it, and hopefully when he talks about his ideas about leftism, deplatforming, all the rest of it, it might influence people to take people on the left more seriously, maybe even become leftists themselves. Now, it's not that I don't agree with him in theory, but I think in the context of the specific debate platform he's going on, it's problematic. Because first of all, Lauren Chen and Milo Yiannopoulos are firmly on the far right, you know, white nationalist camp. The stuff they've put out in the past is insanely damaging, platforming white nationalists, pushing racist conspiracies, pushing the type of stuff you see in the manifestos of white nationalist shooters. Obviously, in my opinion, these people are completely toxic, damaging to society. Now, with Milo Yiannopoulos himself, I don't think he believes actually a lot of the stuff he says. I do believe he's a very racist and bigoted person, but I think he just looks for attention. And I do think with someone like him who pushes awful stuff, deplatforming has been very successful because it has made him largely irrelevant, because he did have his 15 minutes for a couple years there. He was very prominent. He went on the Bill Maher show, he was on Joe Rogan, he was on Drunken Peasants, he was on a lot of different things because he was so outrageous, because he was so flamboyant. Now, of course, someone like him who says he's a gay man and he's married to a black man and he actually comes from a Jewish background, obviously he wasn't accepted by many neo-Nazis, and comments that he made on Joe Rogan Drunken Peasants eventually came back, which he defended himself as a 14-year-old having relationships with adults and kind of defended that practice. And unlike Peter, I think deplatforming is good for people who run in neo-Nazi circles and white nationalist circles and push violent rhetoric which you can link between people like Lauren Chen, Lauren Southern, Milo Yiannopoulos, and other maybe more mainstream people like Donald Trump and Ben Shapiro, and violent actions that occur. And obviously in the West we're seeing a massive rise in groups of neo-Nazis, whether they're infiltrating the police or just forming their own militias or doing terrorist attacks, and there is a through line between people like Milo, Chen, Southern, and these groups. So like I said, I don't think Milo actually believes some of the stuff he says, and he thrives on attention, and for him specifically, snuffing out the oxygen of his attention has been very successful in making him irrelevant. Now, of course, Peter is actually quite prominent on YouTube, quite prominent on Twitter, so him debating someone who has largely faded into obscurity probably isn't a good idea, because you are making them more relevant again. Of course, now I'm talking about it, but after he does this debate, I'm sure there'll be videos of it, and then Milo will become a bigger talking point, and he could potentially infect more people with his toxic views. Now, if you want to get into it even more, it's moderated by Lauren Chen, who herself has platformed numerous white supremacists and white nationalists, who pushes all these racist conspiracy theories about migrants, about Muslims, and about things like white genocide and racism doesn't exist, diversity shouldn't be attempted, because in her words, it's a very modern idea that doesn't seem to be working. Her ignorance of history is quite astounding. But in the context of being on a debate panel where you are facing off against someone on the far right, and the panel is moderated by the far right, it seems like a bit of an ambush. And no offense to Peter, but the Destiny debate he had didn't really fill me with confidence that he is the best person to be debating someone like Milo Yiannopoulos. And whatever you think of him, and obviously I hate Milo Yiannopoulos, he's very flamboyant and he will say anything, and it's quite hard to debate someone who will say anything. Because when someone just spews nonsense and spews garbage, it's kind of hard to counter that, because they just make things up out of thin air and they try and derail the conversation. So I think debating someone like Milo is a lot more difficult than debating someone like Destiny, and it's not helped by the fact the panel will be moderated by someone who is an ally to his views. So in my opinion, if Peter's not careful, they could make him look very silly, and his idea of going in and potentially influencing people for the better could completely backfire, where people get their own views more cemented, that leftists are ridiculous, leftists are pushing all these things I hate, leftists are just obsessed with cancelling people. And of course it goes without saying I don't agree with Peter Coffin's stance about deplatforming anyway, because I believe people who are white nationalists should be deplatformed of mainstream social media, not least because these social media websites actually have terms of service that these guys continually break, but they aren't enforced properly. So best case scenario, Peter goes in there, has a really great debate against Milo, even though he has the help of Lauren Chen moderating. It doesn't matter. Peter influences other people, but not all leftists are crazy, and Milo is the person not to be trusted, and leftists generally have your interests at heart more than people like Milo and Chen. Worst case scenario, it's a teamed up ambush between the moderator and Milo, make Peter look ridiculous, and further cement people's views against leftism. And I guess the underlying point of all this is, regardless what happens, platforming someone like Milo is probably bad, because he has since faded into obscurity, faded into irrelevance, and if you are lending some of your credibility, your legitimacy, and your fame on the YouTube space, on the online space, to doing a debate with someone like this, I guess people's criticisms of you making this guy more relevant again are warranted, because again, what is the point in making someone who has done nothing but damage, who has toxic views, what is the point in making him semi-relevant again? And what is the point of giving him a platform with someone who does have a large audience like yourself, where his views could potentially infect some more people? So just to finalise, I've had small interactions with Peter on Twitter. He actually follows me. He shouted out one of my videos before. So me and him have had a friendly relationship, although we're not close, we don't talk or anything. But I just wanted to make this video to give my views on it. I didn't want to be toxic. I wanted to be fair to him, and I wanted to appreciate what he's trying to do. And I think in theory it makes sense, but I think when you really break it down, I don't think it does, and I do worry this could really backfire. So it's quite a contentious issue, so let me know what you guys think in the comments. Please like the video if you liked what I was saying. Please subscribe to the channel as well. We're trying to hit 10k in the next couple months. I'm on 9.4. The growth has been really great this year, and I appreciate everyone's support. If you want to talk to me and follow me on social media, please follow me on Twitter at @TheCavernacle, also Facebook and Instagram. Check out my Reddit, which is r/TheCavernacle. Also, my personal Reddit is u/TommyCahill1995. Please check out my Patreon in the description, and thanks for everyone's support. And also check out my WordPress. And if you made it this far, thank you for watching.